Alright, now it's time to bed this rifle stock. First thing is I took off the mag well and then the trigger. So I'm not going to show you guys how to do that. There's so many videos on how to do that. But I am going to use JB Weld to bed this rifle stock. But first I need to rough up the surfaces where the action's going to actually touch the area. The reason why I want to rough this up is so that when I put the epoxy on there, that it has a good mechanical grip. Because if I don't wax it up, this is too smooth, it could end up, the epoxy could end up coming out easily. So if I rough it up, when it dries, the idea is that the crevices in here will keep the epoxy from sliding off or whatever. So that's what I'm planning on doing. I just need to rough this up. And what I'm going to usually use a Dremel. I don't have a Dremel here, so I'm just going to use this itty bitty screwdriver to rough up the areas that this thing is going to mate in. I could also use like a tiny little knife, but I think I'm just going to use this to rough it up. So what I did was I roughed up these areas over here where the action is going to touch the stock. I'm not going to rough up the pillars because I don't want to put any epoxy in the pillars at all. So that's my son. It's like, okay. So yeah, I ended up roughing this up in this area, this part right here, and this part, because that's where the action is going to be touching the stock. And that's where we're going to put the epoxy. Oh, also, this is the recoil lug. So I'm also going to bed that, because this thing can get annoying, comes out and falls off. So if I bed that with epoxy, it will just be there permanently and I don't have to worry about it. So that's what I plan on doing for this little recoil lug. So the next thing you're going to want to do is just put some tape around here, just so you don't get any epoxy all around and it gets messy. I'm going to end up smoothing out the rough edges anyway with a knife, but this kind of prevents me from having to do too much cleanup work at the very end. So I put tape all over here. I'm probably going to put some more tape over here. I don't want any epoxy on this nice wood, so use this painter's tape. It's a purple tape. You can use the blue tape. I don't recommend the white tape because they're more sticky and they're a pain to get out. The purple ones are not as hard to get out. So that's the next step. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this Play-Doh to cover all the holes where I don't want any epoxy. So I'm going to cover these holes over here, the mag well hole, trigger hole. Probably going to definitely cover this part right here because I don't want any epoxy. This is where the pin goes. This little crevice right here for the bolt release. And so yeah, I'm just going to cover pretty much any hole that I don't want any epoxy in with either clay or Play-Doh, whatever you use. So I've just finished putting the Play-Doh on the holes that I don't want any epoxy in. I don't need to put it on here because I'm not going to put any epoxy on this side. It's mostly on this part, the last 2/3 of it. And then I'm going to put this release agent. You can use shoe polish, and there's other release agents that you can use. And this pretty much keeps the epoxy from sticking to the metal of the action. So I'm going to put it all around the areas where I think the epoxy is going to touch it, so this is what the release agent is. Because if I don't put it on there, then the epoxy is going to stick on the stock and the metal, and it's going to keep it together. And I'm going to have to pry it off, and that's not fun. So the release agent keeps me from doing that. And yeah, let's do it. Alright, so I put the release agent all over the action. That keeps the epoxy from sticking. on here, as well as I also put it in the bottom metal. I may have overdid it, but hey, I'm trying to be safe. I don't want any epoxy on those things. And I also put it in the action screws. A lot of people use different sets of screws. I've done this before in my CZ MTR like 4 years ago, and then my other one it ended up being fine. I mean, it's going to be a pain to clean this, obviously, but so I guess it's probably recommended that you use a different set of screws. But I'm just going to use the regular screws that came with the rifle. And I also put a release agent on it so that the epoxy doesn't stick to the threads. I'm also going to put a release agent on the edges, being careful not to put any release agent on the actual like place that I want the epoxy on. I'm just going to put it on these edges on the tape. Just a tiny film. And that should be good. This is just my homemade gunsmithing. I'm not like a professional gunsmith. I have done this various times with my other rifles, and I mean, I'm gonna try to do it clean, but it's probably not gonna be perfect. So I don't expect it to be super awesome. I'm just trying to get the job done and embed it, not to make it look pretty, but I do want to make it look pretty though, and that would be nice. So I'm sure a lot of you guys will have your feedback on things I should have done, and I do appreciate that, and I'm trying to learn. Alright, so now we're gonna mix up this JB weld. This is your hardener, this is the steel. It says that the setup occurs in about 4 to 6 hours, but allow it to set overnight before putting object to use. So by this time, right now it's I think 7 p.m. So by tomorrow, within 12 hours, I'm probably gonna let 18 hours pass by, or 24 hours before I take off the action. It should set within 4 to 6 hours though, and then dry up next 6 hours or so after that. So it's gonna be 1 for 1. I just take cardboard and then some Q-tips, or I'm probably gonna take a popsicle stick and mix it up together. This one is the steel. Probably gonna end up having to use up all of this. So this is a messy job. Yeah, that's why they pay the gunsmith big bucks to do this. But I've already spent enough big bucks, so I wanted to do this myself. And this is your hardener. Oh yeah. Let's see why I want it. Alright, so that's a 1 for 1 mix. Now I'm going to mix it up. I'm just going to use a Q-tip. Just mix it up really well, super well. Probably mix it up in the next 2 or 3 minutes. Alright, I mixed this up maybe 2 or 3 minutes really well, or the best that I could, and it should be like a dark grayish color. And now I'm going to put it all over the area where the action is going to touch. So don't be afraid to be generous with it. Alright, this should do the job. I wanted to make sure I was generous with how much I put on there, because I'm going to end up just cutting off the edges anyway. That needs to be cleaned up. So I put a lot on there. I also put some on the recoil lug. So I put the recoil lug in there. So this is going to be permanent. The recoil lug, instead of having to take it off and put it back on, it's just going to be more permanent. So now I need to put in the action and screw it all together. Alright, I put the action in, the bottom metal. Make sure that you don't torque it down. Just put it in snug, and that should be fine. You do not want to torque it down yet. You want to torque it down when the thing dries and later on. But just right now it's snug, and there's a lot of excess, so I'm going to clean that up. So I'm just going to take some Q-tips and some alcohol and wipe all over. just to clean up all my mess. Alright, it's about 6 or 7 hours later. The epoxy should have set by now, and it should be fully cured by like 5 or 6 hours from now. But according to this, this is my indicator right here. It's right now the epoxy has set, so I'm gonna just take this out and just make sure everything looks good, and then put the action back in. Alright, this is 6 hours later. As you can see, everything looks pretty good. I mean, I'm gonna clean all this up so it looks smooth. I did forget to put epoxy over here, so, but I think I can live with that. I'm just gonna probably sand this down so that the action free floats in this area and it's not touching it. But I mean, it might not be a big deal, so we'll see. There's a few spots where I could have put more epoxy, or one spot right there, but overall, like, I mean, I'm pleased with it. When I took off the action, it released fairly easily, so the release agent did its job. And here's the action underneath. There's all the release agent. So this is gonna be quite the cleanup job. I think the hardest part of this job is just cleaning up and the prep that goes into it. I did get epoxy over here, so I'm gonna need to take that off. We don't want that. So while it's still soft, it's not gonna fully cure probably until 5 hours from now. I'm gonna go ahead and just do some cleanup job, and then put the action back on afterwards. So I'm just gonna clean up all these edges, make sure it looks nice and neat. And I think I should be fine taking off the tape right now. Everything looks good. Alright, so I need to clean this up some more, but I used the knife to get some of the edges and then sanded some of the edges down so that it looks nice. Unfortunately, I did get some epoxy over here in this area, so I had to sand that down. I'm gonna have to restain it with the same finish that they used. I hope I can find the right color. I think my wife has the right color. So I'm just gonna do some more cleanup over here. I ended up cutting myself, unfortunately, while I was doing this, but oh well, it will heal. Some things to note: if you're gonna get this done professionally, it's probably gonna look a lot better than this. This is an at-home job. I wanted to get this done as soon as possible because I wanted to take it to the range and I wanted it to be accurate, so I didn't want to wait like a few weeks or a whole month for a gunsmith to do this, even though they probably would have done a prettier and better job. But for what it's worth, you could do this yourself at home. It may or may not be as pretty, but for me, it works, and I'm happy with it. So just need to clean this up. Also, I ended up sanding this down because I forgot to put epoxy. That was kind of stupid. So I should have put epoxy over there, but I forgot to. So what I did was I just ended up sanding this down so that it's free floating in this area of the action. It probably doesn't matter. I don't think it does, but you know, just peace of mind for me. But yeah, I'm just gonna do some more cleanup and then put the action back in so until it fully cures. But I mean, I think this might actually be fully cured, but I'm just gonna put the action back in so that it cures the shape of the action fully by tomorrow morning. So I ended up using this very thin stain espresso. I hope it's the right color. I'm just being honest, I'm not sure what is the right color, but I'm just gonna put it on and let it dry. Hopefully it's the right color. So far it does, but it's still gonna dry, so I think that might do, hopefully. Alright, I'm gonna put the action back on and wait till tomorrow and take it off and then clean up everything. Right now it's like 1 or 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. in the morning. Alright, put the action back on. I'm gonna let it cure for another 5-6 hours until I wake up in the morning. And right now I'm just checking to make sure that the barrel is free floating. I'm using this tape, or you could use a dollar bill. Alright, that's good over here. That's good. Yeah, that's good. It's free floating. Alrighty. Alright, it's been about 14 hours, so this thing should be ready to go. I did restain this part because I had to sand it, and over here I got some epoxy. I used the Espresso Verathane brand wood stain, and it seems to blend really well, so I think I may have gotten that one right, thankfully. Yeah, so let's see how it looks. I'm going to take off the action and clean it up a bit with some alcohol, wipes, and then the job should be done, and then put the trigger together and the magwell, and we should be good to go. Alright, that looks good. Now I just need to take off the Play-Doh and all this release agent. Especially in the action screws. That's why I just recommend using a different set of screws, because this thing's a pain to clean. I didn't realize it, but I probably didn't need to put any release agent on the front action screws. I just had to put it on the rear ones, but oh well, it is what it is. Here's the job. I think it looks good. Again, I am not a professional gunsmith. I just do this at home on my own personal rifle. Yeah, but I mean, for me, this is gonna work fine. It should help with the accuracy. Not that the CZ is already not accurate. I'm sure it is. I haven't shot it yet without betting it, but anything helps to be competitive. So, cleanup process. Let's go. I have these alcohol wipes, alcohol pads, so I'm gonna use probably a bunch of these. I also have these disinfectant wipes with alcohol in it. Isopropyl alcohol with a bunch of, I'm gonna go through a bunch of these Q-tips. Alright, now everything is all cleaned up. Ended up taking probably like 30 minutes just to clean all this up. This was probably the biggest pain out of them all, but I was able to get all the release agent and all the Play-Doh out, so this thing should be good to go. I'm going to put it back together, and I think the next project will be installing the scope base and the bolt knob from Area 419. And here is the finished bedding job, if you guys want to take a look at it.